Chille DeCastro loses another court case. This time is Nevada State-based Ironton, Ohio, lawsuit thrown out for lack of prosecution. DeCastro had 9 months to serve the defendants and blew it. Regan Benson goes on a rampage at the Englewood City Council meeting after neighbors complain about Project 5280. Spends rest of the night trying to attack Denver's bus service in 7.5-hour live stream. Plus, James Freeman feigns outrage and gets to say the name Dick multiple times as he gloms onto Lane Meyer's stomping grounds. All this and more in this edition of Auditing Insanity. I'm AI Johnny Jones, and this is another edition of the Auditing Insanity Newscast powered by ReallyCoolNews. We got a quick intro today as we feature 2 really insane people and one pretending to be insane as he's making bank off of donations again. That's right, we're featuring the return of Chille DeCastro, Regan Benson, and the comedic stylings of James Freeman. Sit back in your chair and buckle up as we ask you to focus on James Freeman feigns outrage in Lane Meyer's backyard. YouTuber James Freeman's latest Me Too livestream originated from Pima County, Arizona, on Tuesday as he glommed onto the First Amendment auditing community centered around rising superstar Lane Myers and the Myers-related community. Freeman explained he was at the Pima County Justice Court in order to support fellow YouTuber UC Police Suck, who was attempting to argue against a recent order banning video recording in the building. Announcing that he and another YouTuber were kicked out of the hearing for nodding in agreement with TUC Police Suck, Freeman video streamed in violation of the order from outside of the courtroom. Freeman excitedly spoke out against Judge Robert J. Foreman, who mistakenly believes that he can tell we the people who can record in the building. Freeman was joined by YouTuber Joe Cool, who agreed with him that the judge was a thug who ignored rule of law. If this seems to be familiar, Freeman lost his lawsuit against New Mexico's 7th Judicial District Court to allow him to record within courtrooms and to lift a ban from the courthouses in the 7th Judicial District unless he was accompanied by a member of law enforcement. Taking time to interact with a court worker unfortunately named Dick Tracy, Freeman resorted to juvenile antics to please his followers as he aggressively ended every sentence with the word/name Dick while screaming at the man. Tracy then trespassed Freeman from the building. Freeman then began screaming that Tracy had declared war and that Tracy would either learn the easy way or the hard way, that Freeman was in charge of the situation and Tracy was powerless to prevent transparency. Eventually standing outside of the courtroom after being ejected, Freeman continued to rant that war was declared and demanded to know if law enforcement officials were ready to place hands on freedom fighters who were ready to fight in the name of transparency. Tracy and others explained that if Freeman didn't vacate the property, police would be called. Freeman then turned that statement into a call to action to his fans, who he assured would carry out complaints as apparently the hard way was now launched. Freeman ended the broadcast by proclaiming that there would be problems if the court would not allow recording in my courtrooms. The James Freeman Show would go live again on Wednesday, and the outrage, feigned or otherwise, is expected to continue in the near future. Freeman's stylings did nothing to spark the market as all of Lane Meyer's crowdsourcing campaigns saw goose eggs for Tuesday. They weren't alone, as all of the markets saw a second day of gooses with no recorded donations, including our own ongoing expenses fund.
Journalism is not free. Both ReallyCoolSite.org's daily newspaper and our daily newscasts are funded by your continuing donations and what we make from our YouTube AdSense revenue each month. If you'd like to contribute to help us keep the lights on, eating, keeping the cats fed, and writing new stories to feature on both the newspaper and newscast each day, We do have a GoFundMe set up at the address on screen right now. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch the advertisements on our videos, like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in.
Regan Benson calls Englewood residents liars. YouTuber and sometime advocate for the homeless Regan Benson returned to the Englewood Civic Center to address the City Council Tuesday night before putting Operation Sit at the Front of the Bus in place, where she would live stream from public transportation in the Denver area for most of the night. Benson started the night by telling the side chat at her live stream that she needed new donations made to her Helping Hands for Dignity 501c3 organization, that she needed some immediate contributions as she had depleted the funds of the organization with recent spending. The YouTuber waited somewhat pleasantly while she waited for her turn to speak during the public speaking portion of the meeting. Benson apparently threw out her planned statement as the first two speakers for the night called into question the activities of Project 5280, a homeless shelter which Benson is involved with. Benson has recently begun using Project 5280's downtown Englewood facility as a home base of sorts, providing her a place to go to as an excuse to continue her Batman-like monitoring of the small suburb of Denver. With the facility recently opening itself to bad weather overnight accommodations to the homeless, Benson now has a place to stay overnight in the city should she need to continue to monitor things during the evening and late-night hours. The first two speakers during the public feedback portion of the meeting were part of the Good Neighbor Committee that has been closely monitoring the activities of Project 5280 since it opened its doors in an abandoned church in Englewood. Both speakers were alerting the Englewood City Council to problems they have observed with Project 5280 and violations of the Good Neighbor Agreement that Project 5280 agreed to when they were allowed to open their facility. Complaints include a 300% increase in crime in the area since Project 5280 moved into the community, with drug usage, public urination, and home invasions topping the crimes. The speakers accused Project 5280 of being complicit in the crimes and often housing those who committed the crimes within their facilities as soon as they were notified that the police had been called. While there were apparently no sanctions built into the Good Neighbor Agreement to address the women's concerns, the women were seeing preventative measures to be taken by the City Council in order to address their concerns. Speaking after the women had finished, Benson tore into both women, stating that they did nothing but lie out of hatred for the homeless. She accused the women of being problem neighbors who could not stand the fact that there was a homeless shelter within their community. Addressing the City Council, Benson bragged that Englewood had now lost its fifth attempt to prosecute her for various charges and that the City Council had bullied the wrong person as she was not going away and they could not get rid of her. She finished her comments by giving the double bird gesture to the assembled City Council before storming out of the City Council chambers. Afterwards, Benson threatened a federal civil rights lawsuit against Englewood, promising an easy victory as she promised. Heads were going to start rolling. Benson then streamed for another 6.5 hours as she navigated Denver's rapid transportation portal bus services, highlights of which included Benson screaming at a bus driver, Benson screaming at an allied security guard, and Benson screaming at rapid transportation portal police officers. No one was injured in the filming of Benson's 7.5 hour broadcast.
DeCastro gets another Nevada state lawsuit tossed. Those who have been following Jose Chille DeCastro's recent lack of legal effort, his refiling of his Ironton, Ohio, state-level lawsuit was dismissed on last week following over 6 months of activity. DeCastro had filed lawsuits to sue the same defendants with the same charges in Nevada, while the Ohio-based version of the federal civil rights suit was on life support. He sued in both state court and federal court and claimed he was filing on behalf of his customers, some of whom lived in the state of Nevada, giving him a right to sue in the state. Eventually, the original lawsuit would be dismissed with prejudice after DeCastro's attempt to appeal the judge's decision to throw the case out was unsuccessful. As the case was dismissed with prejudice, DeCastro would not have normally been able to refile the charges against the same group of defendants. By a preemptive filing of the lawsuits, DeCastro kept the case alive and was in the process of serving the defendants when he was sentenced to jail last year, which caused delayed service of the federal lawsuit and apparently saw DeCastro forget about the state-level lawsuit. In the federal case, after being released from jail in July, DeCastro was granted 1 month to serve the defendants in the case or face having the case dismissed for lack of service. DeCastro made no attempts at service in the following 6 months, and that case still lingers without resolution. The state-level case, with no activity for over 9 months, was dismissed without prejudice on January 14, 2025. It is unclear if DeCastro is still aware of the lawsuit and if he plans to refile. In more DeCastro news, the YouTuber broadcast for 4.5 hours on Tuesday with an announcement that he had hired a friend in order to film material related to his Constitutional Law Scholar board game. DeCastro begged his fans to make donations to help pay for the man's services for the 2-week period, during which the men are expected to show how the game is played along with the benefits of learning from a self-proclaimed legal expert. The YouTuber continued his assault on the rights of women to serve in the military, emergency services and the police force by going out of his way to showcase YouTube videos showing women performing poorly in those duties. While stopping himself from proclaiming he'd ban all women from the duties when he is governor, DeCastro made it clear that he believed that women are physically inferior to men and should never be put in a situation where they attempt to dominate a man physically. DeCastro, perhaps playing off of President Donald J. Trump's recent actions against women in leadership positions and DI hires, called the Jacksonville, Florida, Sheriff's Office on Tuesday to complain about a female officer who accidentally shot a man when attempting to disarm him during a traffic stop. The officer who responded to DeCastro's call hung up on him when DeCastro said he had a few off-topic questions for the man, then went on to ask him how many pigtails and DI hires. DeCastro then went into his latest addition to his JD character, screaming at the phone that he would bring the officer a cake with "back the blue" written on it should he agree to meet with him in person. Later in the broadcast, DeCastro would go on to interview former friend and viewer Brandon Mitchell. Mitchell said that he completely hated DeCastro while on the air but thanked him for his possible help in overturning Mitchell's 2022 conviction for obstruction of legal duty. Mitchell recently completed a 1-year probation period for the offense in December and had previously paid the $350 fine that accompanied the probation. When he asked what his chances were on appeal, DeCastro assured him that it would be a slam dunk and it would be worth sitting down with DeCastro and ChatGPT to file the appeal. DeCastro had 8 trifolds to give away at the end of the broadcast based on donations to his website. He is expected to give them on Wednesday's livestream.
And we're back. Just a special shout out and thank you to all those in our community who pitched in for the wet cat food drive. We should be good until at least the end of February, and hopefully conditions improve as the current cold snap eventually ends. As we end tonight, another reminder that Jim Finch and the gang will be back with you tonight with the 3rd night of Finding Parson a Mate at 8 p.m. It's Find Parson a Mate week apparently, as NCR News Network recovers from an illness from a previous selection on Find NCR a Wife Night. Stay tuned for our own comedic stylings, drama, and quiz bait.